Postcards from a Dying World, the podcast. For more than a decade, I've reviewed over 1,000 books that are mostly science fiction, horror, and bizarro. This feed will feature bonus audio I have produced over the years, as well as a monthly digest of reviews based on what I've read each month, plus the occasional bonus material about my own fiction. Thanks for listening. Hello and welcome to Postcards from a Dying World. Although he didn't watch a lot of movies this year, my guess for the best of 2021 movies is one of the biggest movie nerds I know. He's such a movie nerd that he got me a movie pass when they still existed because he wanted to talk more movies with me and couldn't believe that I wasn't seeing more movies. Just to convince me the movie pass was great. Old friend Issa, who Issa you might know, he's a writer-director himself. He's made a movie, and he's most well known for being the lead vocalist of the hardcore band Good Clean Fun. Issa, welcome back to Postcards from a Dying World because you were on our Star Trek's Lower Decks episode. So welcome back.
I'm excited to be back. Thank you very much. I'm excited to be here, and I'm excited to talk about movies.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about the best and worst. Well, I'm going to have one worst movie, but we're going to mostly talk about the best movies that we saw this year. Now, I should note that I saw a really good movie last night that's not on my list. I don't know where it would be on my list, but I know it's on yours, so we'll talk about it at some point. But the idea here is, for me, that these aren't necessarily what I think are like the best Oscar-worthy movies necessarily. Just my favorite movies of the year, some of which I want people to check out that maybe they didn't see or hear about and to highlight. And I'm just going on favorite. Now, once Oscar season comes and you ask me what's like the real best, it may be different. And one movie I have not seen yet, which I think would probably be high on my list, but I'm not seeing it until later this week, is Nightmare Alley by Guillermo del Toro. I just haven't seen it.
I've not seen that yet either.
Yeah, so shame on me, because that would probably be on my list. But let me start with my honorable mentions, and Issa can continue to rank his movies because he didn't rank them yet.
They're ranked. I'm ranked. I got it. Yeah. It just took a second. I've even got 2 honorable mentions. Okay, so my honorable mentions. I definitely have a worse movie.
Yeah. Okay. It's not as bad as mine. I can guarantee you. Well, we'll see. So my honorable mentions include the German Netflix released vampire movie Blood Red Sky, which is like terrorists on a plane, vampires on a plane kind of crossover thing. This is way better than it has any right to be. This movie should be really dumb, but it's actually pretty good. I would have made a few different choices with the narrative in it, but I seen it long enough ago that I'm not really quite sure what those were, but I just know it was pretty good. I gave it a solid 3.5 stars, but I think it's one that is such a stupid, crazy concept, and the fact that it worked as well as it did is really a testament to the movie. I think there's a better airplane thriller the year before. Joseph Gordon-Levitt was in a movie called 7500. I think it's like a code for terrorist taking thing. But that's a single, that movie never leaves his POV from that cockpit. And that movie's great. That movie's incredible. So I should definitely recommend that one to people. But that was last year, so can't talk about that.
So I don't want you to spoil anything, but were the terrorists vampires, or were there terrorists on the plane and also vampires on the plane separately?
No, so there's a mother on the plane who's a vampire who's trying to make it, and she's timed the flight to go overnight to New York to get a cure for her vampirism.
Right? Okay, of course.
And then the terrorists try to take over the plane and turn it the other direction. So she's not going to make it if they go into the sun, right?
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
That is a great plot. I love how that constrains the time of the movie. You know. It's good.
Yeah. No, it's better than it has any right to be. and that's Blood Red Sky, released by Netflix. And the next one's a bigger movie, and that's the most recent James Bond movie, No Time to Die.
I forgot to put that on my list. That is my complaint about these James Bond movies, is how forgettable they are, and I just forgot to put it on my list.
Yeah, well, No Time to Die I actually liked. I thought, yeah, Spectre was bad. The big spoiler at the end, I think everyone should have seen coming. So despite Rami Malek like not being good in anything besides Mr. Robot, and he's incredible.
Besides the Queen movie, that was I thought that was his highlight.
Yeah, see, I that one hurt. I didn't like that performance either, but despite Rami Malek, I think kind of chewing the scene a little, like if you chew the scene so much as a Bond villain that you're kind of going overboard, that's pretty bad. However, I thought the movie overall was a really great bookend for the Craig Bond era, and it's not my favorite. I definitely Skyfall is the best of those films, and Casino Royale and Skyfall, but I think this is probably the third best, and I think a very good and fitting ending and something we've never seen, and it has moments that we've never seen in a James Bond film, and the fact that there's like 40 bazillion of them, and there's a couple moments in there that we've never seen before. I'm all about No Time to Die. Your thoughts on No Time to Die, Issa?
So I had the same thought I've had with every other James Bond movie pretty much since Sean Connery, where it's not bad. It's actually quite a good movie, but it's completely forgettable. Like the old Bond movies used to kind of rest on some crazy stunts or some action sequences, and had, of course, all the classic James Bond stuff. I feel like they've lost that somehow, and I almost feel like the Mission Impossible movies have kind of taken over for the James Bond movies. Like they're better James Bond movies than James Bond movies, and it's hard to put my finger on it. It's not that it's bad; it's just not memorable. Like I leave the theater and I don't remember anything that I just saw, and that's been my. I like Daniel Craig. I have no complaints. Like I can't put my finger on what it is I don't really love about these movies, but it's just. They seem very interchangeable and forgettable. Like I don't remember the older ones. I remember liking Skyfall the most, but I don't remember really what happened in any of them. Like it's all very a blur.
Right. Well, I think Spectre I think that's the main thing, is it's just like kind of a mess and a blur and whatever. But I think Skyfall had the like going back to his roots thing that really that kind of made it a little different. And one of my big problems with these Bond movies is that Naomi Harris's Moneypenny is like way more incredible than any other person he meets along the way. So it's just like that always kind of bothers me too. And she's great in another movie on my list this year, but that's just a little like nitpick. But anywho, No Time to Die, I thought. Honorable mention. And now the next one on my honorable mentions might be a little bit more, because I saw a lot of people really didn't like this movie, and that's it was a straight to HBO movie with Hugh Jackman called Reminiscence. Did you see that one, Issa?
I'm pretty sure I saw that in the theater. I don't know that it was straight.
Yeah, that's right. It did get a small release in the theater. Yeah.
Okay. I was one of the 10 people that saw it in the theater. So
Yeah. So Reminiscence from Lisa Joy, who's one of the creators and showrunners of HBO's Westworld, her directorial debut for a film. Starring Tandy Newton and Hugh Jackman, and I really actually like this movie. And a lot of people thought it was too long and too convoluted, but
it was definitely long.
It's definitely long. I got into it because I thought the world building was really great, and I just kind of got lost in the world. And it's definitely not top 10 worthy, but I thought it was a cool movie, and I'd like to think that it looked fantastic. And if we can get more like, kind of this is weird to say, but more throwaway sci-fi movies that look that good,
Mhm.
then that's just better for the sci-fi world,
So
because then, yeah.
I wish that I remembered this movie better, because I think, during pandemic time, everything sort of has run together for the last 2 years. But I don't know when it was actually out, but I feel like I saw it quite a while ago. I didn't mind it. I didn't really like it. You say you really like the world building. I didn't love it. Like, I liked some of it. Like, I thought there was some stuff that was really well done.
Mhm.
There was like that. There was some. Yeah, it was a script that could have used another rewrite. That sounds like such a cliche thing to say, but like, I feel like there was the gem of a story in there, and it
Yeah.
needed a little more work to come out.
Well, actually, I will agree with you that another pass to kind of tighten the bolts a little bit, because it's like a murder mystery, and the whole
Yeah.
thing is that he can live inside of his memories. And uh, this is another turn, by the way, for the just unexplainable like screen charisma of Rebecca Ferguson. She's been killing it,
Okay.
and I just don't know what makes her just work on screen so well. Dr. Sleep is another example of
Mhm.
where she just pops in that movie, and of course Dune, which we'll talk about later. But as far as yeah, I can agree with you that it just needed a little tightening, because at an hour or 2 hours and 20 minutes, there's an
Yeah.
hour and 45-minute version of this murder mystery,
Yeah.
that would have just been a
Yeah.
little
There were.
better. I was fine with it the way that it was, but
There's like an obligatory action scene where he like ends up underwater, and I really, it would have been much better without that scene. I remember, it's coming back to me that I thought there was one fight scene that was just kind of silly. So
yeah,
you know,
and that was, yeah, and especially because of how hard filming underwater is, like you really could have just,
yeah.
yeah, it didn't really add much to the plot. I will agree with you there.
Yeah.
So however, I think Lisa Joy, pretty good for her first time, like being able to
Yeah.
manage those
Sure.
visuals. Her episodes of Westworld are great, so I'm in favor of her doing more stuff. I would like to see, and here's the thing, I want to see more smart, character-driven science fiction that gets this kind of treatment. So, I recently put out an article on tour. There's like 20 classic science fiction movies I'd like to see made, and things like this like help, because if they can get attention, that if we could get more of these that don't need to have like a blockbuster release, and they're still getting made, that's a good thing. So
Yeah, I agree. I will segue with that right into my one of my honorable mentions, the Tomorrow War, the Chris Pratt sci-fi movie that I think was on Netflix. I think it was straight from Netflix. A lot of people didn't like it. I thought
Amazon.
it was, oh, Amazon. Okay,
Yeah.
sorry, Netflix or Amazon, whoever. I thought it was fantastic. I mean, it was for like like you were just saying, it's great to see like a little time travel alien sci-fi movie. It didn't seem to go over very well with a lot of people, but I thought it was quite enjoyable for a watch at home experience.
It was a dumb fun experience. This is the type of movie that would have been a Sci-Fi Channel release like
Yeah,
a couple years
exactly.
ago, and yeah, no,
but it wasn't that dumb. Like, I mean, there were like,
it was pretty dumb.
There's
pretty dumb, and it may have just been
the plot was actually not bad, like aside from a couple major points of the plot. But if you take away, this is honorable mention territory, but if you take away a couple of the things that maybe were a little silly, I guess no one's getting spoiled on this, right? We're totally fine to tell spoilers, but
well, I think you can give a skip ahead 2 minutes. Always, like, if we say spoiler warning, people, okay, that's a skip ahead 2 minutes kind of thing.
So if anyone is worried about being spoiled for the Tomorrow War, then please do skip ahead for a minute. But I thought the part where like the future part was just sort of very generic and whatever, right? But I thought when they figured out where the ship was and went to go take care of it, I thought that was really smart, and I thought that was really good. Like, and it could have obviously been a lot better, but I thought that was like a solid premise.
I am pro this movie because, just like what we said in the last one, the more science fiction that we can get that doesn't have to be like lines around the block to justify its budget, I'm all for it. So, all right.
I think we can leave it at that.
Yeah. I have an actual good movie for my next honorable mention, and then we'll get your last honorable mention, and that is Judas and the Black Messiah.
I did not see that. I've been meaning to, but I haven't gotten around to it yet.
Okay, so this is a biopic about Fred Hampton, the Black Panther, and Lakeith Stanfield plays the FBI agent who infiltrates the Panthers, and it's incredible that this movie got made. This is not the type of movie that you would, I don't know, it'd be easy to go in and ask people for money for, right? To make a period movie, and it looks great. It looks period. It's funny to do old rundown Chicago. They filmed in Cleveland, which makes me laugh. Sorry, Cleveland. Just the fact that Fred Hampton was 21 years old when he was murdered. So Daniel Kaluuya is great as Fred Hampton, but he's a little bit older than Fred Hampton was when he was killed. But it just shows you what an amazing person Fred Hampton was, that he had done so much by the time he was 21 years old. This movie will make you angry. It will upset you.
Yeah, I'm in this very embarrassing situation now where I haven't seen a movie. So I'm in a situation where I got some white guy telling me about the Black Panthers on a podcast. but we'll just put that aside and go on with I'm glad that you liked it, and I'm excited to see it.
Yeah, you should see it. So I won't say too much more, but I will say that it's really well directed, and it's really interesting. It was like the two screenwriters who started it were like a comedy team, had written nothing but comedies, and wrote this like super serious movie about murder in the Black Panthers. So that's interesting in that regard. So, all right, your last honorable mention, Issa.
Okay,
I have one after that.
My other one is Black Widow, which I'm a huge Marvel fan, and normally it would be in my top, if there are 4 Marvel movies that year, those are my top 4 movies usually. Black Widow got completely screwed and released in like the worst possible way, just based on timing. This is not a spoiler to anyone who's not been living under a rock, but we all know what happened in the events of Endgame. And then her
meaning that she was already a dead character in the MCU.
Yes, exactly, which pretty much guarantees that the stakes are very low in her movie. And the movie was fine. It was actually a really good movie.
I liked the movie.
Yeah, I liked it a lot. If it had come out 5 years ago when it was supposed to come out, like right after Civil War, if it had come out in the time period where it takes place, it would have been a fantastic installment. I will say, for me, it was my first movie back in theaters. So, and that's the longest stretch I've ever gone in my life without seeing a movie in the theater. And I love going to movies in the theater. So there's a certain amount of awesome that I felt just because I was back in the theater, but I think all the family stuff worked really well. And it just should have came out after Civil War. Yeah, exactly. And that's why it's an honorable mention instead of in my, top 4. But I want to tell a funny story about my pandemic movies. So my first movie before the pandemic started, my last movie before the pandemic started was Vin Diesel in Bloodshot, which was one of the worst movies I've probably ever seen. Not good.
It looks real bad.
Yeah, it was really bad. It was worse than it looks. My first movie back was Fast and Furious in Space, whatever number that is. So I had a Vin Diesel bookends around my pandemic experience, which was entertaining. So
my last movie before lockdown was The Lodge, which is a really, really sad and awful, depressing horror movie that's so depressing. There's moments that I just laughed out loud at how depressing it was. Which is, have you seen The Lodge?
I have not seen it, no.
Yeah, you should see it. It's a great horror movie, but what I realized is it was a good example when I watched it at home. I watched it at home with my wife, and it didn't work as well. And I realized there's a lot of very specific reasons why that movie worked better in the theater and did not work at home. And that movie depended on the immersiveness of, like, you can't pause it, you can't get up and leave the room, you can't get a snack, you know, you're in it. And another movie that I wish I had seen on the big screen but did not is a British horror movie called Censor. And it stars the woman who plays Mother on Raised by Wolves, which is a show that I like a lot more than some people did. But you would not recognize Mother from Raised by Wolves in this movie. She's completely unrecognizable from that. And this is a meta horror movie about the video nasties of the 80s. She plays a woman that's on the board that censors gore movies and has to watch gore movies to censor them for the British in the 80s. And it triggers for her some stuff about her lost sister. And I'm gonna do it as a PKD Dick-like suggestion on the Dickheads podcast, because a lot of Philip K. Dick's trauma throughout his entire life is the fact that his twin sister died when he was a baby, and he has all these like haunted twin fears and things. Censor.
Interesting.
Yeah. So Censor is really interesting horror movie. Very, very good. And pretty violent too. So if you're not into that, don't do that. Issa, your worst movie of the year.
So I've got two that I'm going to use both. I'll be very fast. One was terrible, and I knew it was. I should have known it would be terrible. I shouldn't have watched it. It is called Two. It is a movie on Netflix, I believe. It's a Spanish film, I also believe, that is about, it's like Human Centipede Part 2, basically. It's about two people who don't know each other, who wake up from being unconscious. And
I heard about that. Yeah.
It then features like an M. Night Shyamalan worthy twist, which is, it's just like, it's not good. And the funniest thing about the movie for me was I was so glad that it was a Spanish movie, because if it had been made in America, it would have been like so much worse. And so that was kind of entertaining. So it's very short, very direct, but it's exactly what you expect. And I watched it because people were making fun of it, and I was like, all right, fine, I'll check it out. My actual worst movie, which should have been way better, was Limitless, which was the Marky Mark movie, who I love. I'm a huge fan, but the Marky Mark movie where he remembers all his past lives. Oh, am I getting the name wrong?
It's Infinite, right?
Is it
Limitless?
Infinite?
Is Bradley
Cooper.
Cooper.
Yeah, it's a little infinity symbol. Yeah, sorry, Limitless, totally different movie. I apologize to Limitless. Infinite, that was what it was. I didn't have time to prepare my honorable mention, so this happened really fast. But Infinite with Marky Mark, where he can remember all his past lives. It is probably the dumbest science fiction movie ever made. I was very unimpressed.
Wow. All right. My worst movie. I have to defend myself for why I watched this. Okay. The absolute worst movie of the year, starring recent astronaut William Shatner. Now,
that's why you watched it.
No, that's not why I watched it, actually.
Okay.
Right now, we were in a little bit of a Jean Smart renaissance. Jean Smart was great in The Mayor of Easttown. She was great in Hacks. If you haven't seen the show Hacks on HBO Max, it's very, very funny, and she was great in it. And I heard that Jean Smart was in a romantic comedy with William Shatner called Senior Moment. And I thought, well, now Jean Smart keeps doing all these like really great things like Hacks and all that. And, you know, I love William Shatner. So what I did not know that Senior Moment was a production of some like Christian movie company that makes those like Hallmark propaganda type movies.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And so that it's a rom-com starring 90-year-old William Shatner and Gene Smart called Senior Moment. And it takes place in Palm Springs. And the whole thing happens because William Shatner is like this womanizing 90-year-old guy whose whole life is centered around his sports car, and his sports car breaks down and he has to start riding the bus, and he meets this hippie woman played by Jean Smart and falls in love. And it is so bad that it became a test of will to see if we could finish the movie. It is the single worst movie I've seen in a long time. And
it sounds great.
Yeah, it was. And if you think like, well, there's got to be at least a few laugh out loud moments, it's just uncomfortable. It's, he put William Shatner like needed more hazard pay for this than going to space. I just no. This was a big no.
Okay. Yeah.
And so Senior Moment is my worst movie of the year, and it's Jean Smart's fault. I watched it because I thought she must have been doing it for good reason. She was not. I don't know if it was money or what, but
it was money.
Yes. So my number 10,
sure.
Yeah. So let's start our countdown, our top 10.
Okay.
Issa, your number 10 movie of 2021.
My number 10 is Eternals, the Marvel movie. It was fantastic. It's a Marvel movie. If you just straight up compared it to any movies, it really should be higher on my list. But I felt like it just, compared to itself, it could have been a little better. And that's why it is in the number 10 spot.
Okay. I have to admit, the only Marvel movie I have not seen in the theater is Eternals. And it's not because I wasn't interested. It's just timing didn't work for me.
All right, well, you should definitely see it. I mean, it's really
good.
I
thought it looked good, and I think I'll probably like it more than a lot of people. Because I don't have most of the things that I've seen people complain about it were all things that I'm like, that doesn't bother me. No,
there's the main complaint is that it isn't as like action packed or as exciting as you might want a movie like that to be. But
I don't care about that.
That will not be your problem. Yeah, totally.
If you give me story, I'm fine. So my number 10 is a Korean science fiction movie called Space Sweepers. And Space Sweepers and I've seen it compared to tone-wise Guardians of the Galaxy, and which is fair because it has a lot of humor and it has a kind of breezy tone. Part of the plot is it's about this crew who work like combing the orbit of Earth for space junk, and they happen upon this robotic child who they're told is a giant bomb, but she's very sweet and cute and cuddly. So it's kind of and so they have to get to the truth behind who built this bomb baby, sweet child, like 4-year-old child. And so there's like some dystopic sci-fi stuff. There's an evil mega corporation choking the earth. The little kid is very cute. There's a Blade Runner-ish design to the whole thing. The action is crazy and over the top. It's the most intense Korean cinema has done with CGI, so that's good. And if anyone knows, Korean cinema is great. Korea makes great fucking movies. So the only thing that you can kind of ding the movie for is, and this is true of most Asian films, I don't know why Asian films can't hire actual English language actors, but they always, whenever there's anyone speaking English in these Asian movies, that they don't seem like they can speak English at all.
I mean, have you seen the American portrayals of Asian actors?
Yes, I know. I'm not saying we're better. I'm not saying we're better. But I
Sure.
watch a lot of Asian movies, and it's
Yeah.
not as bad as it used to be. But like, especially in the 80s, it was like they didn't hire actors. They would just get some guy to
Yeah.
say lines. It was terrible. But yeah, Space Sweepers is great. And I know you haven't seen it, so you can't really comment too much on it. But
I will have to watch that.
you will love Space Sweepers. Trust me. Yeah, I don't know. I watched it in Korean with subtitles, so I don't know how it works dubbed. But I would suggest watching it in subtitles. And
yeah, I'm definitely a subtitles kind of guy.
Yeah, and but it will just make you wish that Korea made more sci-fi movies, because it's super good. And I should comment that if we both have a movie on our list, we'll talk about it at the higher spot.
Okay.
So you're number 9.
Number 9, Last Night in Soho.
We're going to talk about that one later.
Okay, we'll skip that one. Well, then let me do my number 8 too, because I know we're going to skip that. My number 8 is Dune.
Okay, yeah, we'll talk about that one later. So
okay.
My number 9 was Nobody with Bob Odenkirk.
I didn't see that.
Yeah, so this is Bob Odenkirk doing John Wick, like literally like the John Wick fight coordinators. But the director of the movie is a Russian punk rock director who had done a movie in Russia a couple years ago called Hardcore that is really good and crazy, over the top action movie. So here's the pitch. It's Bob Odenkirk doing John Wick. Christopher Lloyd plays his dad, and RZA's his best friend. And RZA and Christopher Lloyd are as good as screen partners as you could imagine. Right?
I can't believe I didn't see this. Yeah.
Here's the other thing. It has a bus fight that I think is better than Shang-Chi.
Wow. Okay.
Yes. So and it beat Shang-Chi to the bus fight. In fact, I'm sure when the Shang-Chi people saw the bus fight in Nobody, they were like, damn it, we've already filmed our bus fight. The other thing is that Nobody has a cameo for the great Michael Ironside. And anytime you can see Michael Ironside on screen again, that's good. And the whole thing was inspired by Bob Odenkirk was involved in a break-in. He had a break-in in his house, and he ended up just locking the person who broke into his house into his basement, and the person couldn't get out. And
wow.
And it turned into this thing where everyone just kept telling him, "Oh man, I would have kicked that dude's ass." And so the inspiration for this movie was like how many people were like telling Bob Odenkirk, "Well, why didn't you just kick the dude's ass?" And like, it all kind of came from that. It's obviously a Bob Odenkirk passion project. If you love Bob Odenkirk, you're gonna love Nobody. I'm surprised you didn't see this one. It's really good. And so your number 8, you said, was Dune.
Dune, yeah.
Yeah. We'll come back to that one.
Yeah, I figured that'd be higher on your list. For me, it's only half a movie, so it can't be too high, but
we're gonna have the half a movie debate. I see.
I loved it. It just was half a movie. It gets, whatever. Do you want to do your number 8, or did we just do that?
Yeah, let's do my number 8. My number 8 is Candyman. I don't know if you saw Candyman, but
I didn't. I did mean to see it, but I just somehow managed to not see it. So
okay.
I will see it at some point, though. I heard it was good.
Yeah, Candyman, for no other reason, the best score of the year. That Candyman soundtrack is so good for writing horror. Let me tell you, the guy who wrote a horror novel this year, and listened to the Candyman soundtrack so much that I feel like I know the movie better than I probably do, because I listened to the score 100 times. It is a smart sequel. I had some issues with it. It's not perfect, but I think they did a really good job of working today's social issues into the Candyman mythos. It is not a reboot. It is a sequel. And for that reason, it is really smart how they did that. The one thing that really bothered me with this movie is that they didn't give a story by credit to Clive Barker, which made no sense to me. I don't know how the WGA rules worked for that, but there's no screen credit. There's a special thanks to Clive Barker at the end. And there's a scene where a character is reading Weave World, but that's as close to like acknowledging Clive Barker's role in creating Candyman. So I thought that was a little weird. I was a little hurt by the fact that the night before I saw Candyman in the theater, I watched Take Shelter with Michael Shannon, and I feel like that's a better horror movie, even though it wasn't technically a horror movie, than Candyman. And that's kind of on me thing. And the opening scene where they do the backstory was all done with these like puppets, and it shouldn't have worked, but it was so fucking cool. And I'm behind. I really want to see Nia DaCosta, the director, her first movie, Little Woods. It's been in my queue to watch ever since I saw Candyman. I just haven't gotten around to it, but I thought it was really well directed. I feel like the studio, there's a feeling that I had watching it that there's a longer cut by the director that works better, because towards the end it gets a little choppy, and to the ending a little quicker than feels paced right. So I feel like we got to the ending a little too quickly, and my feeling is that there's some studio fuckery there, and that if we ever get a director's cut, it'll be significantly better.
Cool.
Issa, you're number 7.
Number 7, I have Suicide Squad, which was a lot of fun. Is this on your list, or is this one not?
It is not, but I saw it.
Okay, all right. It was, I feel like I'm grading on a curve a little bit here, because the DC movies have not worked very well as a general thing. But this one was just totally over the top ridiculous, and it worked really well. Just James Gunn. Yeah,
well, and if you watch like Birds of Prey versus this, like you can see where, letting a director like have their way can,
it makes, I guess you have to find, the director has to work for the project. And this was a movie that, it's not like I'm saying it was like my favorite movie, right? Like I felt that it sort of lost some steam in the second half, and there were some other issues, but overall it was just a really like breath of fresh air, like it was very different from all the other superhero movies, and it really worked and was just hilarious. So it definitely made my fan list.
It was very funny. Peter Capaldi was great. Yeah. There were definitely lines in the movie that cracked me up. I forgot another really horrible movie I saw this year, and because I watched it the same weekend as Suicide Squad, which was the Eurovision, the Will Ferrell movie.
Oh, I did not see that one. Yeah,
do not see it. It's
I wasn't
terrible.
going to. I was not.
Anyone out there listening, watching, do not watch Eurovision. I had to watch it because it was nominated for a Hugo, because one writer did a fan campaign to get it nominated, and I feel like I'm never going to read that author's work ever again because they did that. Yes, but I watched that and Suicide Squad in the same weekend. So Suicide Squad seemed really good compared to that unwatchable mess. And but I will say I didn't like the original. And I know there was a lot of studio fuckery there.
The original was horrible. I mean, it was just terrible. It was it wasn't even like a movie. It was like a few movies stuck together, and most of them weren't good.
Yeah, I did think Suicide Squad was a bit long. I was a bit ready for it to be over.
I was too.
Yeah, but other than that,
John Cena is hilarious and just worked really well in that movie, and I'm excited for his series, the Peacemaker series.
True.
I think it will continue to entertain.
Yeah. I can't see it being over even half a Dune, but hey, it's your list. Number 7 for me is the Nicolas Cage joint Pig. And I don't know, did you see that one, Issa?
I did not. I actually was planning to watch it today, but I didn't have time. All right. I'd been meaning to watch it. It was on the list. You mentioned it, and I was like, crap, I haven't seen it yet, but I just couldn't make it happen.
Okay, so Pig is not the movie you think it is. The trailers make it look like John Wick with a pig. And because Nick Cage's last real insane, well, I guess he had Color Out of Space after that, but Mandy being one of the greatest cinematic achievements of the past 10 years, says me. and I still think Mandy is a better movie than Pig. And when everyone's like, oh, like all these people have been saying that Nick Cage, this shows that Nick Cage is back or that he has whatever. It's like, no, Mandy did. But I will say that Pig is a movie that I was a little afraid to watch, because not only did I used to live in Portland and hate the foodie culture up there, but being that we're both vegan, and I was a little worried about, violence towards animals in the movie. Everything's kind of off camera, and it does a really good job of actually expressing animal rights points of view, except for, and the one thing that really hurt the movie for me was the last scene kind of undercuts the message of the rest of the movie. And it's I don't think that's a spoiler to say that, but Nick Cage's performance is, just as a movie fan, anybody should want to see this movie for Cage's performance. Those of us who watch enough movies know that when Cage is on, he's on, and that he can, for every, Prisoners of the Ghostland, there's a Leaving Las Vegas. And this is,
I like him good or bad. Like, he's always entertaining to watch, even in some pretty bad movies. Yeah, good
or bad, he's entertaining to watch. And he's not being very Nick Cagey here. He's just giving exactly the performance he needed to. Another thing that bothers me about this movie, and this is just a me thing, is that I heard interviews with the director, and he was on The Movies That Made Me, which is a great podcast with Josh Olson and Joe Dante, where they talk about like the movies that inspired people. And the fucking director had barely seen any movies. It's like, and that bothers me. That really bothers me that he got a movie made, and then there's like tons of directors who live, breathe, and bleed movies,
right? Trying
to get movies made. And this guy's kind of like, Kubrick? Oh, I should see his movies.
Oh,
it's like that interview really bothered me, and I almost didn't watch the movie because I was like annoyed that like this guy.
How old was this director?
He's not very old, but
look, I mean, yeah, that come on. I mean, if you're whatever, I won't go off on an old man rant, but yeah, new generation and whatever, yeah.
All right, so you did your number 7. Your number 6, Issa.
My number 6 is Boss Level, which I just watched last night on your recommendation, and
so we'll talk about it later.
Oh, okay, all right, excellent. Okay, what's your number 6?
It's a very similar action movie, which is Gunpowder Milkshake on Netflix. Hold on, and we're gonna have dogs fighting.
Fighting. Like, to watch a movie, like I have this.
Okay. All right. So sorry, we took a little break. Gunpowder Milkshake is okay, so this movie is a surreal action movie starring Karen Gillan, who was Amy Pond, the companion on Doctor Who, and most know her from the MCU. Although you wouldn't recognize her because she played Nebula, right?
Right.
And this is her in a starring role, but she plays like an assassin, like with crazy gun fu stuff going on. And her mentors are you ready? Michelle Yeoh, Angela Bassett, Lena Headey plays her mother, and Carla Giacchino, I don't know if I'm saying her name right. They're all awesome. And so like, this is like a really weird lit, surreal, it takes place in like a kind of an assassin world, like John Wick times 20, where like people just walk around with guns, like, and
sure.
and the yeah. And the women in it, Michelle Yeoh, Angela Bassett, and like all those awesome women, they play librarians. And there's like an amazing scene where they like pull books off the shelf and have guns that relate to the titles. But the action scenes are hilarious. They're really good. Angela Bassett has a moment that almost like was the most laugh out loud funny moment where I almost fell out of my chair watching it. And I know for a fact that Quentin Tarantino screened this at the New Beverly, that he was a big fan of it too. So it's not just me. But what's weird is it came out on Netflix. It's an Israeli director, first big movie for this Israeli director. And when it came out on Netflix, like I was just shocked that there weren't people everywhere talking about how hilarious this movie was. And if it hadn't come out like when we were still kind of more in lockdown or whatever, I think this movie could have gotten a big release and gotten a lot of attention. And Michelle Yeoh is great in it. Angela Bassett is great. Lena Headey is great as the mom. It's a very funny movie, great action. Turn your brain off when you watch it. Don't try to overthink it. And then you will have a lot of fun. Yeah. So, but yeah, so let's see. We did your number 6, right?
Yeah.
And so your number 5.
My number 5 is Don't Look Up. Is that on your list? Have you seen it?
It is not on my list. I watched it last night, and that's why it's not on my list.
Okay. I thought it was fantastic. It was if you haven't seen it, it's pretty much it's pretty much exactly Deep Impact meets Idiocracy. And it really is the best of both of those movies. It works perfectly. It works a little too perfectly. It was kind of scary.
Right. That is part of the problem.
Like it's there's this thing with how stupid our politics have gotten that satire just doesn't work anymore because you can't be more ridiculous than what's really happening. And so this movie is a satire, but it's not at the same time. So, Idiocracy was very over the top satire, obviously. And still a lot of stuff. Its
moments of over the top.
No, it does, but there isn't much that happens that isn't like pretty
especially the mid-credits scene.
Yeah. Well, there's the part that struck me as not crazy enough. Like you go back and you watch like Contagion or any of the plague movies or the zombie movies where there's a plague of zombies, and you don't have this concept of like, we're not going to take the vaccine, or I don't believe that zombies are real, or that kind of thing. And then now that seems ridiculous because in real life, apparently that's how people react. This movie, I feel the same way in the sense that when they finally see, this is spoiler, so skip ahead if you don't want to get spoiled before seeing this movie. But the Don't Look Up movement is sort of we don't believe there's a comet in the sky, don't look up, which is just so accurate and hilarious. But then when you can finally see the comet in the sky with the naked eye, the people actually see it and believe it. Whereas I feel in real life, they just would see it and not believe it. Because
I had the same thought. I was like, they're going to say, hey, wait, that's a projection, or that's special effects.
It's fake. It's not real. It's a trick of the eye, whatever. Right. So in the sense that it's over the top sarcasm, it's still not even over the top enough because reality has gotten even crazier. So, it's impossible to take this movie as its own thing. It's very tied up in the politics of America in 2020, 21, whatever year it is. Any of the past 10 years in politics. And so, but I thought it was really well done. Jonah Hill was hilarious. It's very well written. There's a gag with the snacks in the White House is like maybe my favorite gag to be in a movie in a long time. You don't get a lot of good repeating gags like that anymore. That was if
really you're watching MacGruber, you do.
I am excited to watch MacGruber, but I have not been watching it yet. So
I'm about halfway through, and there's a Mel Brooks worthy gag that's set up in episode 2 to episode 3 that reminded me of Get Smart. And
no, okay,
so, you don't see a lot of those these days. So.
That's true. I didn't even notice that those things were missing from movies, and they did it so well. Like the way they just picked up on it over and over was great.
I did like Don't Look Up. I did think it was really, really good. You're right. There's times where it's, I've seen people say that it wasn't very funny, and I think that that's because it kind of hurts because how real like a lot of it is. And so there's a lot of moments for me that the scene when they had that first meeting in the White House and they're just
Yeah.
not taking it seriously, was definitely like one of the that was a really good scene. And I know Money from Race Trader pointed this out on Facebook this morning, and but the scene where she says they're too stupid to be as evil as you give them credit for.
Yeah, that was great.
Yeah, and that is yeah, so that's good stuff. So yeah, yeah, I would say it didn't make my list, but partially because I watched it after I made my list. So
Fair enough.
so I'm not sure. We watched it last night, so I'm not sure where it would have factored if I really thought about it. But I mean, there's a degree, yeah, and I've heard interviews with Adam McKay where he was saying that there was stuff that was just too close. They had a whole part, I guess, written where they had to get the spending for the mission to move the asteroid. They had to give a tax break to the 1%. And when that happened in the COVID relief bill, like
Right.
they took it out because they were like, it hurts too much. But yeah, yeah, Don't Look Up is pretty good. And I do think it's fair to say, although I think people are missing that it was written about climate change more than, you know, a lot of people are now looking at it as a COVID thing.
Yeah,
but,
I mean, it works perfectly for both. You know, it really, I understand it was clearly aimed at climate change, but it does work perfectly for both.
Yeah, and I think the only problem with it is a climate change analogy, and I do think it's fair to say that it's kind of Dr. Strangelove for climate science stuff. But the only problem is we're way past seeing the comet in the sky part for climate change. Yeah. We're at the, you know, raining stuff down on us with all like the fires and everything. So there's a part of me that's like, that's great, Adam McKay, but maybe he could have made this 10 years ago. But you know,
well, I mean, you know, whatever, not to like toot our own horns or whatever, but I feel like you and I have been involved in a group of people that have been, you know, worried about this stuff for, you know, 30 years,
30 years. Yeah.
Right. And so it's like, I'm on the one hand, I'm very glad that it is becoming like a thing that people sort of care about, but at the same time, it's like really, really late, you know? So hopefully more happens. We'll see. But this movie I thought was great regardless. You know, you try not to think about it too much. Don't let it be too depressing, but it's a well done movie, I thought.
And this was your number 5, right?
Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes, this was my number 5.
Okay, so my number 5 is a very different tone from your number 5, and that is the Apple TV movie Swan Song, starring Mahershala Ali and Naomi Harris. And this is a slow burn, creepy tearjerker story that it's definitely has some Philip K. Dick involved in it, although it doesn't have the kind of tone of it. This is a very slow, and I'm going to emphasize that again. It's a sci-fi drama about a husband who finds out that he's dying, and he goes to this company run by Glenn Close in the movie that can clone you and put you back into your family, and your family will never know that you were going to die. And basically that it becomes this conundrum for this character of, once he meets his clone, then, you know, how does he feel about the fact that this person that looks and sounds like him and has his memories is going to replace him? There's powerful themes of grief. It's a real sad movie. It's not a crowd pleaser or a fun movie, but very powerful. And I want to take this moment to shout out, and I feel really weird doing this to a major corporation like this, but Apple TV has been killing it recently, whether it's Ted Lasso, Foundation, Mosquito Coast, For All Mankind, and this movie. Finch, they seem to be giving a really good creative control and giving, you know, they just gave the Coen bro, I'm not sure which one of the Coen brothers, the money to do a black and white Macbeth with Denzel Washington, which is just
Okay.
I'm not sure I'm gonna like it, but I think it's cool that they gave him the money to do it.
Sure.
And the fact that For All Mankind and Foundation that they know that these shows might not catch on right away, and they're saying, yeah, we'll give you 3 seasons, no questions asked, to develop it, is cool. So and this story is another one that's not commercial in any way, shape, or form. First time director, and they gave him this morose tearjerker sci-fi movie. So thumbs up to Apple TV for that. I'm assuming you have not seen this one yet.
I have not seen that one. I read on Facebook that it was the most depressing movie someone had ever seen, which is sad. But I would say
that's one way to look at it. That's one way to look at it. But the other way to look at it is that it's not depressing, because this guy whose wife is pregnant, when he finds out that he's dying, now his kid has a parent.
Yeah, no, sure. I mean, that sounds good to me. Like,
sad for that guy, not sad for the family who doesn't know, who's none the wiser. So, and that's not a spoiler. That's just
plot. No, as a concept, I think it's great. I'm excited to see it. Like, I love, whatever, like high concept science fiction. I'm all for it all the time. So
yeah, and again, like we were talking about earlier, this is the kind of sci-fi movie I'd like to be able to see get made and get funded, and there's a time when it wouldn't have gotten the money.
Yeah, it's really weird as just like an industry. Science fiction movies always have done very well, and yet somehow they have like a super bad reputation,
because they're expensive and complicated to make. So
yeah, well, right, exactly. So you end up with either high budget ones that have to be a huge success, or super low budget ones that are not a success because of their lack of budget. So it's been a weird genre to make movies for.
All right, so you're number 4.
Number 4, I have Shang-Chi, the Marvel movie, with the bus fight. Apparently the second best bus fight of the year.
Maybe. I'm interested. Now when you see Nobody, you're going to have to tell me which bus fight.
I definitely will compare bus fights. But this was a great movie. I think people tend to forget that, this was introducing a new character or new characters. It barely had, you have to compare it to the Marvel movies that also introduced new characters. And it's one of the better ones. I mean, it's
great.
It's a great movie. And the third act gets a little CGI-ish, but that's okay. I will forgive that. I thought they introduced great characters. It's well written. The story was really good. It was really fun to watch. I loved it. Tony
Leung. Oh my gosh, man. He just, as always, he just steals the screen whenever he's in a movie. He's just amazing. I love that he's in a Hollywood movie, whether it's MCU or not. Tony Leung getting like the kind of love and the respect that those of us who watch Hong Kong movies have known that guy just rules the screen. Yeah, that was really good. And introducing characters, it was really good. And as somebody who's a Kung Fu movie guy, like I had every reason to be skeptical of it, but I really enjoyed it. No,
they did. It wasn't Iron Fist. They did a good job,
And represent the director is SDSU graduate. So represent San Diego. So, and his first indie movie was about working at a group home in San Diego. So,
sweet.
Which, by the way, was an early film for Rami Malek. It was discovered. Okay. But anyways, my number 4 is one that you had already on your list, so we'll be talking about, and that is Boss Level. Joe Carnahan, who is an underrated director in my opinion. The Gray is an incredible movie. Narc is great. I know Smoking Aces was a little rough. But Boss Level was a movie that I had zero expectations on. I turned on expecting, I didn't even know that he had directed. I just saw a sci-fi movie with Frank Grillo, and I expected like a CG or a low budget crap fest that would be fun. And this movie it's a time loop action movie, and it's smarter than it has any right to be. The fact that it has a cameo by Michelle Yeoh, so this is the third Michelle Yeoh movie we've talked about this year. So let's give it up for Michelle Yeoh. And smarter than it has any right to be. Naomi Watts. I don't know how they got Naomi Watts to do this movie, but that's awesome. She's good in it. Yeah. And if you had told me before I sat down to watch it, because I didn't know that it was a time loop movie, and I'm over time loops. Like, even though I liked Palm Spring last year, that was a great movie.
Yeah.
I probably would have been like, no, but they did such a great, Joe Carnahan did such a great job with this movie and making the time loops work. The action is incredible. The story is super fun. I laughed constantly watching this movie. It was super fun. Issa, what say you on Boss Level?
So I have to tell you that I don't know how I missed this movie. Like, I never heard of it somehow. And I'm so glad that you recommended it and I watched it, because I love time loop movies. It's maybe my favorite subgenre of movies. Like, I love all of them. I will watch all of them. You know, I mean, there aren't that many, but you know, Groundhog's Day, Happy Death Day, I love them all. I think the concept is great. Even the novel Schrodinger's Cat trilogy for Robert Anton Wilson, which is sort of like that, although not entirely, but just like telling the same story over and over in slightly different ways. I think that's a fantastic just framework to tell a story within. I Boss Level sort of cheated a little. I felt there was a lot of outside the day. There was a lot of stuff that happened outside the loop for one of these kinds of movies. Like, usually the rules of the movie are you just stay in your loop, right? So this sort of broke the rules there, because you got a yesterday. You know, you had sort of like a whole bunch of yesterday events, and it worked. It worked really well. But as a technicality, I have to put that out there. But yeah, no, it worked really well. The action was good, as you said. It was super entertaining. My only nitpick is that there were too few loops. Like, they kept numbering the loops and he was only in like the hundreds, you know, whereas it should have been like in the thousands for him to actually like be able to do all the stuff that he was doing. But fair enough, I don't mind that. That's a minor nitpick, but I thought it was fantastic.
Yeah, I loved Boss Level. You know, as far as like the technicalities of all that, like, I'm not a big time loop guy, although for these movies, but I did just, for me, the action was just great. And it was just really well done. I do know that Joe Carnahan also released 2 movies this year. He had another movie with Gerard Butler called Cop Shop that looks ridiculous, that I just didn't get around to seeing. Like, ridiculous.
You
great.
know, I think I've seen that, and now I can't remember anything about it, but I'm pretty sure I've saw that one. Which is kind of funny. But wait, I have to say one thing, that the Mel Gibson is in this movie, which was almost enough to make me not watch it. Like, I'm a huge believer in second chances, but I also don't care, you know, like, so I don't usually watch Mel Gibson movies, no matter how good an actor he may or may not be. But it worked in this movie really well, because his character didn't really get a lot of development, but I already hated him, so it worked out perfectly. He's a great bad guy in that sense. So I just throw that in there.
Yeah, the thing is, I don't know what it is, but I should hate Mel Gibson more, but he did a movie in 2016 called Bloodfather that, for whatever reason, I love Bloodfather. I think it's a great movie. And but I think his baggage kind of helps that movie as well too, a little bit.
Well, sure. I like I said, he's the bad guy. He doesn't get a lot of development time, but I hated him, so it worked, you know.
Yeah. And for whatever, so the reason that Jodie Foster and Robert Downey Jr. keep defending him for some reason, and like continue to, tells me that maybe he just messed up real bad, but you know, I don't know. Anyways,
sure. You know, drugs, whatever. I don't know, who knows, right?
For some reason, Jodie Foster defending him like works for me, and I don't know why, but like,
fair enough, you know.
You know, if it was, I don't know, if it was Meryl Streep, maybe I wouldn't care. But for whatever reason, Jodie Foster continually saying that Mel's misunderstood good guy. I don't know why, but you know, whatever. All right, so you're number 3.
So number three is actually the movie that I thought was most interesting and surprising of the year, and that is The Night House. And I knew nothing about this going in. This was sort of like one of my first movies back when theaters
Great
opened.
movie.
Yeah, and I'd never heard of it. I only saw the poster, and on the strength of the poster, I was like, I'm going to go see this movie. The poster is just like very minimal, and it's just like a woman standing there, and she's got her hand on where someone's face would be, and you see really subtle just the imprint of a hand on her face, like there's someone there. And it was really I was like, okay, that's a pretty cool poster. I mean, how often do you see a movie poster these days where you're like, oh, I really want to see that movie, right? Like it's usually just an afterthought. So I thought that was impressive. I really, really liked the movie. It's like a slow burn. I don't even know what you would call it exactly. It's not really a horror movie.
It is a horror movie. Give me a break.
Well, it's like a cycle. It's more like straddles the line between psychological thriller and horror movie. I don't know where. I guess it is a horror movie technically, but I feel like it is between those two genres because there's not a lot of horror stuff happening for a very long time in the movie. Like it's a very slow burn in a very good way. The acting's fantastic. The story's really well done. Yeah, I just thought it was great, and it was a lovely surprise this year. And I don't know if a lot of people saw it, but I really recommend it.
No, I saw it, and it was during a day when I watched 4 movies in a row. So I think because of that, it got lost. And I liked it better than a lot of the movies on this list. So I'm kind of calling bullshit on myself here, because what I did to make my list is I looked at my letterbox to see like what I watched and then made my list. And I'm wondering if I forgot to put The Night House on my letterbox because I've watched 4 movies that day, and this was the best of the 4 that I watched that day. And even though it's a slow burn, it was the 3rd movie I watched in a row, and it worked. I was never bored. I was
it's really well done.
It's a really well done horror film, very creepy, very intense. And what's really cool is that was enough of a calling card to get the director the gig directing David Goyer's produced and written Hellraiser remake. So
I had no idea.
Yep. It got that was what put it on my radar, was that the director is doing this new Hellraiser for David Goyer, which, he let slip that they were 2/3 done filming in one of the interviews he was doing for Foundation. So he went from making Foundation to Hellraiser, which is a really interesting,
It's alphabetical,
yeah, I guess. But The Night House, he very specifically said that because he produced The Night House, David Goyer produced the Night House, but I got the feeling from the way he was talking about in the interview that The Night House was an audition for Hellraiser, right?
Interesting. Okay.
Like that he kind of gave the green light or helped produce this movie in order to kind of like say like, hey, if you pull this off and make it well, then I'll give you Hellraiser. So it's kind of an interesting thing. Yeah,
I loved it.
Yeah, and you got to see it in the theater because I saw it. Yeah, I saw it.
Yeah, no, I saw it in the theater. I actually saw it twice in the theater. I really liked it. Went back and saw it again. So
yeah, The Night House is very, very, very good. Yeah, I agree. Good stuff. All right, so let's see. That was your number 3, right? Or
that was number 3.
Yeah. Okay. So my number 3 you had on your list earlier. So while I go turn on a light, tell us why you liked Last Night in Soho, because that's my number 3.
Okay. Awesome. It was really fantastically done. It's like a period piece, and it's really. I'll put it this way. It's about a fashion student. I have no interest in fashion. I'm very, I don't know if this is a video podcast, but I am not the most fashionable person, believe it or not. And I was interested. I was even interested in the parts about the fashion school, but just, it was the characters were really well done. The period part of it was really well done. It was filmed really well. I really have just nothing but good stuff to say about it. And I had very low expectations going in. I didn't know too much about it going in. I will say that I would have tweaked the ending a little bit, you know, like it's one of those movies where after I saw it, I was like, oh, I kind of wish this and this had happened. But you know, I'll say I enjoyed the first two acts better than the third act, but I also really enjoyed the third act.
All right, so here's my thing about Last Night in Soho and why it's number 3 for me, why it's so high for me. First of all, I'm not anti-Edgar Wright. Like, I love listening to interviews with him. He's obviously a big movie nerd, and I like hearing him talk about movies. And I thought Baby Driver was okay. I'm one of the few people that liked Hot Fuzz better than Shaun of the Dead.
Hot Fuzz was great.
Yeah.
Like Shaun of the Dead also great, but you know,
yeah. And it was exciting to see him do like a serious horror movie. And I do feel like anyone not calling this a horror movie has really got problems, because there's ghosts and there's murder, and what more do you need? It is a horror movie. Now, here's the thing: is it's super influenced by Italian giallo movies, and specifically Argento's. So, and there's a lot of things in Last Night in Soho that some of the things that are genius about it, if you haven't watched Argento movies or giallo movies, yeah, so you're not going to get some of the levels of genius that are going on there, because, for example, like the fashion school and all the, you know, when we watched it, like Carrie said, you know, that some of the behavior of the other students in the art school or in the fashion school seemed a little over the top. Well, that's basically a tribute to the Argento movie Suspiria, and she's in a dance school and that, and you know, she's
I've seen Suspiria, so
yeah. So there's kind of that going on. But the thing about giallo movies is the giallo movies of the 70s are extremely misogynist, and they have the 70s vibe to them, and they have these beautiful Italian 70s settings, but the rape culture that's a part of it and the violence towards women in those movies is really hard to take. So what is really brilliant about Last Night in Soho is that Edgar Wright is making a tribute to giallo movies where misogyny is the monster, right? And rape culture and misogyny, and then it has, and I won't give away the, you know, and by the way, General Zod was really great in this. He was super good. The doctor, Matt Smith, was really good, as you know, and there's a lot of tricks to what's going on. And I did like the final act because the twist really puts a statement on, because giallo movies always have a murderer and you don't know who the murderer is, and to turn it around and reverse the misogyny of the giallo movies, and to make kind of a revenge story and have the ghost be truly like the harassing men, like, you know, that's really smart in a way that I think not everyone who watched this movie understands what Edgar Wright's doing there. And so I just want to put that out there, that's one of the reasons why it's my number 3 and why I think it's really, really good. And if you know that going in, and it's such a better movie if you know that about the giallo.
I think we have to put up the spoiler warning, because I feel like we can't really talk about this movie without spoilers. So spoiler warning.
Skip ahead. Yeah, if you don't want to.
Okay. So the part that got me was I wasn't sold on the police showing up at the woman's house as being enough of a trigger for her to try to kill the young woman, right? The older woman. Like, she was like, you brought the police here, now I have to kill you. I really wish that it had been more than that. Like, for example, was the young woman hallucinating? I don't know anyone's name, so I apologize. But was the younger woman hallucinating the whole time, or had this woman she's living with been drugging her the whole time, right? Like, I felt like that would have been so much more interesting if it had been like there was more reason behind why she had to kill her or something.
Yeah, see, that didn't bother me, and Thomas McKenzie is the actor who plays the younger student, and she was very good in it. And Anna Taylor-Joy was pretty good in it too, although she didn't have much to do. But I will say, yeah, I think all the performance was good, and that was Diana Rigg's last performance as the you know, so and that's kind of a great way to go out for an actor.
Yeah. No, I guess I'm saying I would have liked it to be a little longer. Like I felt like it kind of rushed to that end.
Sure, I can see that as a thing. I think for me, like whatever negatives I have for what's missing in the story is made up for, and what he was saying in the statement he was making, just for me personally. But
Yeah.
and god damn, the movie looks incredible. It looks
100%.
incredible. And anybody who knows anything about movie making, that knows how hard it is to get a shot, to do period is very hard, and to make it look seamless, and the way the music works with the way the scenes come in and out of the dream sequences to the flashbacks, all that stuff. It's just really, really, really well done. So yeah, I'm a big fan. Your number two, unless you have anything else to say on Last Night in Soho.
No, I think we said it all. So spoilers over. So my number two is a movie that I would bet almost anything is not on your list. Free Guy. Never would have thought that this would be a good movie.
Yeah, no, I in fact, when I go play basketball with my basketball bros, one of the guys who's like the biggest like moron with bad taste one day just said to me, "Hey dude, have you seen Free Guy? You got to see Free Guy." And I almost
have you seen it?
I have not seen Free Guy.
Okay,
almost entirely because that guy.
Yeah, well,
I'm so excited about
and
it.
I understand it's a mass appeal movie, but holy crap, it's good. Like it's a movie that you see the preview, and the preview, you think gives you a lot of the movie, and you're just like, this movie's gonna suck. It'll be like an hour and a half of Ryan Reynolds being Ryan Reynolds, and that's probably not enough to carry a movie. Turns out it's fantastic. It's a really well done movie.
I loved him in Deadpool, in the Deadpool movies.
Sure. No, but I mean, it's a really good movie with a really solid story and a really good characters, and it's really well done. It's a super basic concept that you've seen 100 times, but they put a twist on it and do it really well. And that's all I can really say about it. It's surprisingly good.
You got to see Free Guy. See, I know I should not let the movie be ruined by that.
Yeah, no, I understand that I sound like that, but it really is like a surprisingly good movie. Like, it's surprisingly good.
Okay, my number two is going to be the Nerd Out.
Okay,
it's going to be the Nerd Out, the Dune Nerd Out. I understand that I cannot divorce the 4 times that I have read Dune in my life. I read Dune for the first time when I was in middle school and loved it. And throughout the years, I first reread it, and we covered it on Dickheads for my 60s Hugo Winners series. When I thought I was preparing for Dune to come out the next year, of course, it ended up being like 2 years later. So I was way ahead of the Dune reread thing.
Right. So by contrast, I have never read Dune
because you said you couldn't get past the first like 100 pages.
Yeah, I started it and it just didn't grab me, and I just never finished it. And then I saw the movie in the 80s, and then I just never read it.
Because you watched the Lynch movie, and
yeah, which was fine. I enjoyed that movie, whatever.
Yeah.
But then I never got around to reading the book.
Yeah. You just never read it all along the way, as Lynch would say. But yeah, so for me, like, I can't divorce the fact that I've read the book, many, many, many times. And Dune is an example of, man, this movie just, because it was on HBO Max and you didn't have to go to the theater if you didn't want to, and people could rent it, that there was a 2-week period where it seemed like everyone was watching Dune and commenting on it. And it was very hard. It's one of those movies where it was very hard for me to listen to people be wrong about it. Because, look, Denis Villeneuve, for me so far, has not made a bad movie. I know a lot of people didn't like Blade Runner 2049, but I liked Prisoners, I liked Enemy, I liked Sicario. I think 2049 is a great movie. It's setting aside my feelings as a dickhead, because I think that Blade Runner 2049 is a great movie that takes a big dump on the source material, and I still like it.
Okay.
And that's Ridley Scott taking a dump on it, because the whole like fact that Deckard is a replicant is exactly the opposite of the book, and it just proves that Ridley Scott never finished reading it. But that's here nor there. But I think Denis Villeneuve and Arrival is great. So Denis Villeneuve, for me, has not made a bad movie. There was only one scene in all of Dune that made me laugh at how ridiculous it was, and it was when they went to the Sardaukar planet, and they had the Gregorian chants, and it was like they were so evil they chant, and that part was like ridiculous. But besides that, I thought it was a near perfect adaptation of the first half of Dune, and I think the whole thing of where you're like it's half a movie. I think the people who've read the book, it's kind of a natural stopping point in the book, and whereas for us who've read the book, I'm fine with it stopping there because I know how it ends and I know where it's going, and I'm sure for you who have not read it, but in my opinion, the Sci-Fi Channel miniseries in the early 2000s has the worst special effects possible, and it looks like it was made on a soundstage, and it's the worst effects, but it actually tells the story quite well. And I've told a few people, like, it's okay to go ahead and read the rest of the book and then have the experience of the rest of the movie, or watch the miniseries if you really need to get the end of the story that much sooner, in my opinion. But as somebody who's read the book so many times, when people say that the characters are like cardboard or they're not emotional enough, it's like, well, you should read the book because they're way more emotional in this movie than they are in the book.
I thought the characters were great. My comment about it being half a movie was more just like what happens in the second half will define how good the first half was. So it's hard to judge the same way you would judge another movie.
Sure.
I was actually surprised that it told as much of the story as it did. I kind of expected it to end when they leave the city. I don't want to, I guess you can't spoil Dune, right?
Yeah.
But I expected it to end with like the tooth and the Baron and all that stuff. And then they escape, and that would be the end of part one. That's what I thought. That's where I was expecting it to end. So it actually went longer than I thought it would. And I was actually a little surprised by that, but I didn't care. I didn't really care where it ended. That it didn't bother me that it was half a movie.
See, I think the ending is where he becomes, the savior, is the end of part one. That's like an end of a story. Is like we've gone from the point where his arc is Paul is a young boy whose dad tells him, like, hey, you don't have to be the savior. You don't have to take over for the family. And then he becomes the savior, which, spoiler alert for 5 other books, but it doesn't go well. Right. And that's kind of the point of Dune is that it doesn't go well. And I don't think you can spoil it because Paul is saying, like, he's telling you it's going to happen and he's having these visions. But I think this translation of Dune is great for people who say that it's not emotional enough, that the characters don't have dimension or depth. That's absolute insanity. Lady Jessica, Rebecca Ferguson, again, like just being awesome. Her fear when he's taking the test of the box is so palatable. Great. It's great. No other version, like Lady Jessica just stands there with her arms crossed in earlier versions. Duncan Idaho's joy at seeing Paul, like, these characters have depth. They're embodied, and the fact that Leto says to Paul, which has never happened in any version of Dune ever, whether it's radio plays, novels, anything, the fact that he says, all you have to be is my son, that's never happened in any version of Dune before, So I am all for And I think one of the most powerful scenes is that you get just a glimpse of Shai Hulud and the woman who's the ecologist when she like, has like, she has the sticks out ready to ride, and you just see it. God, perfect. God, it was so great. And I think Denis Villeneuve was perfect for it because he gave the world like a texture and a feeling, and it gives people something to explore. So
I have a science nitpick with this movie. They did a great job of having like far future technology in most of the movie, where it's just like you don't even there's no gravity, they've got anti-grav like stuff.
Oh, you're gonna be this guy, aren't you? You're gonna say this thing.
You know what I'm gonna say.
Why aren't there computers? There's an explanation in the book.
No, I wasn't. That's not what I was going to say. Okay. I like the no computer thing. That's fine. But why do they have these stupid ornithopters when they've clearly got gravity negating technology? It makes no sense. So that I thought was really stupid. Like that bothered me to the point of like, why haven't they thought this through?
Because that looks really cool. Those ornithopters look really, really cool.
They do look cool, but what a stupid craft to fly if you've got anti-gravity. You know what I mean? Like it just didn't really make any sense.
All right.
I'm just saying that's a nitpick of mine. Once you've got anti-gravity, why would you have like anything else, right? Like it just makes no sense. But whatever. They did a good job aside from that. It looked great.
Yeah, Dune. Look, it's hard to make a Dune. Ask David Lynch. Sure. He ended up, because of making Dune, he ended up doing nothing but weird, crazy, surreal movies for 30 years and doing weather reports on YouTube. So, and which, by the way, I watch every day, even though I'm not in LA. And if you're not watching the David Lynch weather reports,
I did not know that was a thing, and now I do, and I might have to watch one
every day, every morning. Yeah, he does an LA weather report, and every day he says we're gonna have beautiful blue skies all along the way. Get ready for that. But and Fridays, there's a special treat every Friday on the David Lynch weather reports. So everybody watch the David Lynch weather reports. It is part of our nightly routine, even though the day is over and the weather can't help us at that point. So, okay, what was your number one movie?
My number one movie, and I just want to point out that it's not even close. Like my number one movie was about 10 times better than my number two movie, and my number one movie is Spider-Man: No Way Home. It is it's not even its own movie, so it's like a weird thing to compare it to other things, but it was the perfect eighth Spider-Man movie, and it just brought everything together so well. And if you're a fan of the Spider-Man movies, you understand. It totally redeemed Andrew Garfield. I assume we'll be seeing more of him. It was fantastic.
Yeah, that was a little bit of a spoiler there, but
oh, is that still considered a spoiler at this point? I kind of figured that was beyond spoiler.
Yeah, if you don't want to be spoiled for Spider-Man No Way Home, definitely skip ahead.
Then go back 5 minutes and do not listen to what I just said.
Yeah, I saw this in Berkeley on super rainy night. So, and after like going on my Philip K. Dick expedition all day, so I always have that fun memory of seeing this movie. And I thought it was great. It's weird. I don't know how to process it as a Spider-Man movie because it was such a weird, with all like the different multiverses kind of coming together and all that, and the different Spider-Man characters. The one problem I had with the movie is that MCU Peter is really dumb, and his choices in the movie are very dumb, and it's all his fault. And when Aunt May is dying in his hands and it's his fault, and she tells him, "You did the right thing," I want to be like, no, he didn't. No, he did not do the right thing, and you're dying, and you should not be telling him that. I know story-wise, they're setting up, it's basically turning everything that's happened so far into that Spider-Man's origin story.
Yeah.
Which is weird because he's already saved the world a bunch of times, been off planet.
Yeah.
And I get it. I understand why they did it story-wise, but my only problem with the movie is I just thought Peter Parker was really stupid to do this.
Okay.
And now he's a teenager, and every time I've complained about it, people say, he's a teenager, what do you expect? But it's one thing to do like a dumb thing as a teenager and like leave dishes and in the sink and not apologize for it. It's another thing to destroy the fabric of many universes. It's not a thing that you...
Isn't that Doctor Strange's fault more than Peter Parker's fault as the responsible adult in the room? You know,
they are both to blame, but Doctor Strange is going to fix it, and Peter's like, no, I'm going to make the problem worse. And not only that, he's going to fight Doctor Strange in order to make everything worse, and that you know, is what compounds it and makes it worse to me. And for that reason, that was my only problem with that Spider-Man movies that really bothered me. And it's funny because I have a hard time thinking of this as a movie because it's so weird when it all comes together. And it does have the structure of a movie. It has all the characters, and I enjoyed myself. I laughed. I had a good time. I'm glad I saw it, but it's a really odd thing. So, and I'm not as invested in Spider-Man as some people, but you know, overall, you know, it is what it is. So
yeah, I think it's this is why I usually try to leave Marvel movies off these lists most years, because it's impossible to take it by itself, right? Like it's not a movie part 8 of a thing, right? You know, so it's not even part 8 because it's a Spider-Man movie, but there's also other MCU things that are involved. So it's, you know, it's the culmination of 30 previous movies. It's hard to really judge that, you know, but in terms of like how much fun I had in the theater and how many times I want to see this movie again, it was by far the best movie of the year.
And I'm worried that like The Matrix could barely get screens to be shown because
yeah, that's because it wasn't very good.
Well, yeah, I didn't hate it.
I didn't hate it. It just wasn't very good.
I'm actually in the pro new Matrix camp, although not enough that it even got on my list. So I'm not going to talk about it for too long.
Yeah, sure.
I will just say that I don't know. I liked the metatextual commentary in it, and I know that didn't work for everyone.
I would say that if whatever, we go back to the honorable mentions. It just needed, its action scenes were really flat, and that was my biggest complaint.
Yeah, and you know, that's the thing. So anyways, my number one, and and then we'll close out here a little bit, and I'm not going to say a ton about my number one, but it was a very surprising number one for me, because usually every year there's like some genre movie that just destroys, and I like love it beyond belief. Sorry, we have dog situations going on. It's only the number one movie of the year.
Yeah, what timing?
But what I'm gonna say is, like, normally I have like a Mandy or a Mad Max Fury Road or something that's just like the clear. And if you had asked me at the beginning of the year, I would have been like, oh, it's gonna be Dune. It's gonna be Dune.
Mm-hmm.
But honestly, the best movie experience that I had this year, and the best movie I saw all year, was Stillwater with Matt Damon. And even if 10 minutes into it, you had told me this is going to be your favorite movie that you see this year, I would have been like, bullshit. So the thing is, if you watch the trailer, here's one of the things about the trailer. If you watch the trailer for Stillwater, it is absolutely a trailer for a different movie. It is the most bullshit trailer you will ever see. Like, the trailer for the movie for Stillwater is absolutely not the movie that's on screen when you get there. All those scenes are there. All those parts are there. But what they set up is that Stillwater appears to be a movie that's inspired by what was the woman who was accused of murder, the student in Italy?
Amanda Knox.
Amanda Knox. Yes, it appears to be like based on the Amanda Knox story. And the
right,
story,
that's what I thought. I haven't seen the movie, but that's what I thought from the previews.
And so Matt Damon's character is character who he's like a salt of the earth, Oklahoma oil rig worker, and his daughter is a lesbian who gets accused of murder in France and is in jail in France. And the trailers make it look like he's going to France and he's gonna get the truth and he's gonna get her free, and he won't stop until she gets out of jail and he proves her innocent. That is not the movie at all. You think that's the movie, and even the first act, you think when he leaves to go to France, you're like, all right, this is now he's gonna go and he's gonna do this. Stillwater is one of the best character movies I have ever seen.
Wow.
Matt Damon's character in it is so surprising. And what happens, and I almost don't want to spoil it for people.
Yeah, don't spoil it for me. I haven't seen it
yet. Yeah. But I was so moved by this movie, and some things happen towards the end where you're just really hurt by mistakes that the character makes. And it's absolutely the best movie I saw this year. I was shocked. It's not like shocking, like, oh my God, it was his daughter the whole time, like Old Boy or whatever,
Right.
It's nothing that shocking, but it's just, you get invested enough in the characters that, you're just really, really surprised. And it's just, and now the guy who made the movie made The Station Agent, which is a super underrated movie. And he's made great movies throughout his career. And he and Matt Damon did some really interesting things to make this. Like, they spent time like with oil rig workers so they could learn about the character that they were writing about. And just, it's a really interesting thing. And yeah, it's just fucking great movie. Really good movie. Nothing mind-bending or whatever, but just I think what's really so powerful about it is that it's not the movie you think it is. And even when you're half an hour into it and you're like, okay, I see where this is going, and it's not. So
isn't that great? I love when that happens. Free Guy was also very much like that. So we have a theme.
All right, so I will watch Free Guy. You watch Stillwater.
Absolutely.
You have a bunch of movies you got to watch.
I have a bunch of movies to catch up on.
Yeah. But I will say, Stillwater was, and it was just like, oh, I heard Matt Damon's good in this, so I'll watch it. And just didn't really have much of an expectation, and then really good. So all right, so now you didn't see a lot of my movies. I definitely okay, you're gonna make me watch Free Guy.
I'm gonna make you. I'm on my way right now to your house with a copy of Free Guy on DVD.
Well, I'll handle the copy, but and I'm not saying I'll see it tonight, but I will see it soon. So Free Guy is one that
it's not gonna change your life or anything. I'm just saying I think you'd find it interesting as a screenplay, if nothing else.
Right. But okay, so now that we've gone through the list, what's the one that you're putting to the top of your list of the ones you're going to track down?
Well, I'm definitely going to see Stillwater. It sounds like I like Matt Damon, and it sounds that already was on, something I wanted to see. I definitely want to see the Black Panther movie. I've been planning to see that. I'm actually going to see everything on your list, probably. I think it's a good list. It's really weird. I just have to say that these past, pre-pandemic, I would go to the theater 3 or 4 times a week, and or 3 times a week. Like, the A-list pass gives you 3 movies a week, and most weeks I would be like, damn, I don't have an extra pass to see another movie.
Right.
So that was, I used to try.
Yeah, I'm frankly shocked, because one of the reasons why I asked you to do this is I assumed you would have seen everything.
I know. I'm so sorry.
Most years.
So my brilliant plan, and I don't want to bore anyone, but my brilliant plan when everything closed down was to just really invest in my home theater. I got this great, since there was already, like, the previous owners of the house had put speakers in the ceiling and stuff. So I've got this like Dolby Atmos system and like a screen and a projector, and it's awesome. But I can't ever watch movies on it because everyone's always home. I've got young kids, and it's just like, so I can't watch certain movies because of content. I can't watch other movies because they're too loud. And so it's just like, I have this great home theater, but once school's closed and the kids weren't gone during the day at school, I couldn't watch a movie anymore. So it was sort of a rough pandemic movie. So that's why I ended up watching more TV shows.
All right. Well, we'll try to keep people posted on on how you fare on these movies.
I know.
I think you're gonna love Gunpowder Milkshake.
Yeah.
Nobody, Space Sweepers. You'll love.
I will see all of these. These all sound great. What a great list, and I'm excited that I got to see it.
Well, and I try not to choose just because I'm one of Carrie and I try to watch all the Oscar nominated movies before they come. Right. And there were a couple good ones that I like King Richard was great. Probably could have gotten an honorable mention. Will Smith was incredible as Venus Serena's father, and that could have been on the list. And there's a couple other things, but yeah, I think Stillwater just it's just a really powerful experience. So
awesome.
All right. Well, Issa, tell the folks if they want to communicate with you online. Is there a way to find you?
I am terrible at social media, so
that is not true. You are pretty good.
I'm on Facebook. I'm not really on any of the other platforms, and there you go.
Well, and you've got a new startup you're doing that's supporting writers, so that's kind of cool.
That's exciting. That is called Outvoice, and if you have a publication and need a way to pay freelancers, or if you have anything and need a way to pay freelancers, reach out.
Yeah, that I could have. I have one article that I wrote a while back that took me 3 months to get paid for an article, and I thought of you many times during the 3 months that I was like trying to track down my payment for my article.
3 months is not bad in this industry too. Like that's 90 days is like one of the better. I mean, there are some magazines that do better, but I mean,
hey, I got a paper check from Tor, so
Yeah, there you go. So we've taken that, we've brought the process into the 21st century. It typically takes like a couple days to get paid now. And you don't have to send in an invoice or anything, which is fantastic. So
yeah, and if people want to find your band, Good Clean Fun is all over Spotify and stuff like that. For people who don't know, Good Clean Fun is kind of like a tongue-in-cheek, satirical, hardcore band with just some really College is a great song, and
it's vegan straight edge for people who don't take it too seriously.
Yes, and then you have I know you have a Star Wars song. Shout out to Last Jedi, so Good Clean Fun is out there, and people can find that. And I highly recommend. What's the I used to be emo? What's the song? I'm screwing up your songs.
That's okay. This is embarrassing, but a little bit emo, a little bit
emo. Great song. That's one of my favorite Good Clean Fun songs, even though I screwed up the lyrics. But yeah,
it's an old 20-year-old song, so it's cool.
All right, and so we will probably see you again when we review Star Trek Discovery season 4.
Which I'm now excited about. The last episode was great. So
the last episode was great.
Yeah.
And I can't believe there's haters complaining about the last episode when it's like the most Star Trek episode of the season. So
totally.
All right.
Cool. Well, thanks for having me.
I'm going to go hoop before it rains, hopefully. So, and I will be in touch soon. So thanks for joining us.
Thanks, David.